So welcome to Dose of Deborah, Rehab for the Heart. I'm your host, Dr. Deb Howell, and I am so excited to have live from the Bahamas, right? The Bahamas, Dr. Kiti Adderley. And Dr. Kiti is a physical therapist. She's the owner and senior physical therapist of Handling Your Health, Wellness, and Rehab in the Nassau, Bahamas. And Dr. Kiti is also a best-selling author of Yes, I Can, 16 Success Secrets from Inspiring Women Around the World. The last 14 years, Kiti has been involved in an intensive study and mentorship of oncology rehabilitation, and more specifically, breast cancer rehab, where her focus has been on limiting the side effects of cancer treatment, including lymphedema, and improving the quality of life of cancer survivors. She is a certified lymphedema therapist and is trained in myofascial release, McKenzie techniques, and is certified in pregnancy massage, and also in kinesiotaping as a practitioner and an instructor. Dr. Kiti is the chair of North American and Caribbean Region, World Physiotherapy Association. You're a busy lady, girl. And she is, of course, very dedicated with her time and knowledge to educating the public about wellness and how to manage chronic non-communicable diseases such as diabetes and hypertension. Woo! Okay. I am excited to have you here. So, yeah, and man, the Bahamas, I'm going to pretend that, like, you know, I'm over there and we're like hanging out by the water. So welcome.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Yeah. So, you know, I have been listening to you. You've been on this challenge, you've been doing these Facebook Lives each day, and they've been absolutely wonderful. And we'll have folks at the end, you can give them your information, how to connect with you. But one of the subject matters you had talked about, brought up in the conversation, had to do with self-examination. And that resonated with me so deeply, because it is something that I believe it's not until we are in a crisis of some sort, a major change in our life, you know, something that is more or less like having our back up against the wall, or we're down and we're like, okay, only way up, right? So, you know, something that's going to prompt us wanting to go deeper and figure out, you know, what can we do to feel better, to, you know, have a different course than the one that we're on. And so I think that, you know, talking to you and having this discussion about what does that look like to begin the process of self-examination, because your topic in your book is about being authentic, right? And all of that has a lot to do with what is that really, to be authentic, if we haven't examined ourselves for what's true for us. So,
right.
You know, yeah. So maybe like start someplace, wherever you are with that.
Okay, where do we start? When I took the challenge to write this chapter, I knew I wanted to talk to people who were going through similar situations like myself. And that situation was, as healthcare providers, as caregivers, we were not taking good care of ourselves. We were serving everybody else, but we weren't taking good care of ourselves. We were like giving all the love, doing all the therapy, doing all the conversation, the guidance. The kids are fine. Everybody else around us are fine. And we're leaving ourselves for the last. And I was in that crisis. You know, I'm recovering, but I was in that crisis where I was crashing and burning, literally. I think I had crashed and I was burning, but I still made it look cute. And as I wrote this chapter, it was supposed to be about self-love. It was supposed to be about wellness. And then I was just like, you're just hiding. Take off all the crap and call it what it is. What is it truly that you want to speak to? And it's me. I wanted to talk about me. Am I doing what I want to do? I love what I want to do, but am I taking care of me? Am I serving myself? And that was painful because you spend your whole day giving advice and giving guidance, and you're not living by what you're giving. And that's when I really had to decide for myself, am I really being authentic to myself? Am I being my true self? And it was painful. It forced me to look at how I got in this situation because it was self-designed. I didn't plan for it, but I created this situation where I felt I need to be the best. I felt I needed to pour myself completely for everybody else. I measured my success by what I attained educational wise and who I was able to help and which groups I was serving. And I had myself stretched so thin that there was practically nothing left for me. And then I found myself being angry because I'm exhausted. And I just felt that I was not serving myself. And then how do you recoup from that when you've already created this culture of giving and not receiving and not taking care of yourself? So that's basically how it started for me. My introspection, my standing in front of the mirror and ripping away all of the labels and titles. You know, it's embarrassing sometimes when people read my bio because, like, do you really have a life? You've done all of these things. What are you doing just to be Kitty? And believe me, I do Kitty, but it's, you know, you sit back. I sit back and I'm like, all right, we need to balance some of this stuff out. So that's how it started. And I was grateful for Dr. Izdihar J. Mail. She was our ringleader of sorts. And after the book was published, she encouraged us to do this 30-day challenge where we decided that we were going to be committed and consistent to being visible and speaking to a topic. And even though I wrote a chapter and I felt I did a that I wanted to talk about, there was still so much of it that I had to explore. There was still so much of it that I had to learn from. And that's how our 30-day challenge got started. We're at day 29, believe it or not, that's how we got here.
Congratulations on that. So
Thank you.
two things came to mind when you're saying that. One is integrity and the other one is alignment, right? When it comes to authenticity and feeling that we're living what's true for ourselves and to know what that true north is, right? And that we are congruent. And when we are congruent, then we are also in integrity. And someone just asked me this question today. Actually, not asked me the question, brought up this subject, and then I had said something to it. So they said that integrity had to do with when everything lines up, what you say, what you do, and everything. But then the question was, let's say if there is something coming up that you don't really want to do, right? But you made a commitment to do it and you're part of it. And so you feel like, am I out of integrity if I show up when I really don't want to be there, right? And my thought around that had to do with, if we acknowledge for ourselves that, wow, you know what, maybe I'm tired, or my energy's not right for this, but to reckon with, I made a commitment to do this. And I recognize that the best I can do is bring the best of myself to the situation, that we're still in integrity because we're still honoring the fact that, hey, this is not so simple. and then it shifts the energy, because strictly doing things out of obligation out of sheer obligation versus having our heart in it and recognizing where our heart is as we conduct whatever it is so important, that we are working with that reality and that resonance, because this is not a perfect world, and those kind of constraints are strangleholds, really. And then we see other things come out of that, you know, where we have guilt and where we have resentment and all this other stuff. So, you know, and so you made a commitment and you've been sticking to it, and you've been doing an amazing. It's been wonderful, really
Thank
wonderful, and thought provoking. You know, and I think that's part of self-examination, is that we have to. It's a provocation. It really is. We gotta, you know. Hello.
It is,
Just
it
wake
is,
up.
it is.
Yeah.
You know, and what I realized what I wrote in the book, in the chapter, was we create this culture unknowingly. And you talk about integrity and showing up. There's a time to show up and there's a time to say, no, I can't. Thank you, but I can't. I had this conversation today. I've been told that I need to start saying no more. And it's important because we tell ourselves that because of who I am, I need to be there. Because of what I believe, I need to be there. You don't need to be anywhere. You don't. And we, here's the word need. We should be very careful about where we put our energy and how we utilize our energy. Because, and I'm speaking from personal experience, I look around at the things that I've done and people that I've served and causes that I've served. And while I felt very fulfilled doing it, when I step back and self examine, I could have probably done something much more meaningful. Now I'm trying to be a lot more intentional of where I put my energy and time. I think as a young PT, I wanted to learn everything and I wanted to do everything and I wanted to be everywhere. And I didn't have a lot of mentors in my early years. So I sort of learned as I go. And I burnt myself out very early. We need to be very intentional with our energy. And it's okay not to show up. And it doesn't mean that you lack integrity. It means that you honor yourself, your space, and your energy a little bit more. But it also teaches people that your time is valuable. So don't call me for small things. And it's not that you're saying that I won't do small things or menial things. I don't want by any means to demean that. But there are times when we really just need to step back and say, thank you very much. Not at this time. I appreciate the offer, but not at this time. And we need to learn that earlier than later. Because then what we do is we create this thing that, oh, like I said, we need to be here. I need to show up. If I don't show up, I'm tired, but I'm still going to drag myself. No. As physical therapists, we teach our patients energy conservation. Do we do that for ourselves? You know, do we really examine ourselves and say, where am I really going to expend my energy? What's a high value task that I'm doing? We don't talk to ourselves that way. We just go, 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 go. And it's not healthy. That's why so many of us burn out and we end up with these musculoskeletal injuries and maybe even some psychosomatic issues because we're just going, going, going. And we've created this momentum and this inertia that we don't even know how to control it anymore. Till like today we had a an unplanned lockdown day today. And I had guilt because I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? I'm doing nothing. I need to be doing something. I still have to tell myself it's okay not to do something, just to take rest when it's unplanned because I'm so used to doing that. And you have to honor yourself. You have to honor your space. You have to honor your time. And if we're talking about being really authentic, it's taking the time to really examine and know what you need.
Yeah, and judgment. So just as to say no, like, so if there's something that we are, don't really want to do this, making room for the decision to be okay with doing it or be okay with not doing it, right? Without the judgment. And and because we are our worst critics.
We are.
Yeah, and so I know that too, because if I would get a little bit of space, I would fill it, instead of resting, because my rest will be restless, kind of, right? So it's like, well, that's not rest. So I conditioned my body into just having to be always on, always busy, active, not necessarily productive, but active, right?
Yes.
That when it came to any kind of downtime, it was like downtime was like wasting time. And so that was something that I've gradually had to learn also, is how to construct my time in my day, and to schedule out things as much as I can, and still make room for the things that show up that I don't have control over, and again, be able to adapt and adjust. So part of these rigid and fixed beliefs and expectations are also part of looking at ourselves, and where in our life do we have a rigidness and inflexibility, and how well does that serve us, and and the origin of it.
Right.
Yeah.
When we talk about the lives that I've been doing, I get comments in my inbox afterwards. They don't put it in the feed. They come into the inbox. I know, I really like what you said, and and at first I was like, I wish you'd put it in the comments so other people could see and hear what you're saying. But I understand that we're all on a different part of our journey, and some of us are very private. But what I realized happened as I was doing these lives every day, that I was able to bring topics to the forefront that people may not have actually considered or looked at. The goal is to have people not crash and burn. The goal is for people to hear the topic and have the conversation in their head and recognize, I want something to resonate with them and click and say, oh, that sounds like what I may be doing, so I don't get there. And I hope that's what happened. There are times when you hear a conversation and you just stick it in your subconscious. The brain is so beautiful, it just stores everything. And not until a similar conversation or a similar scenario presents, you're able to pull that out from the files and say, well, I heard about this, and when I get here, then I should do X, Y, and Z. So I hope what I did was plant seeds in the brain, in the mind, in the psyche, that as people go on their daily routine, they're able to see themselves, be a little bit more reflective, a little bit more observant, that when they see themselves heading towards those directions that may not be the healthiest or may not serve them the most, they're able to say, oh, I remember this conversation, and pull themselves back and be able to utilize some of the skills and tools or little hints that we've dropped along the way. They say an ounce of prevention is worth more than a pound of cure. And so hopefully something like this happens, that we don't have people crashing and burning. And this is a very delicate emotional and psychological, when it comes to psychological health for us right now, because of what's happening currently in the world. Every nation's affected by the pandemic and the uncertainty of it, and economy wise, it's been affected. Children socially, my kids miss their friends. My daughter just wants to go to school to say hi to her friends, you know, and so you have to pay attention to your body, you have to pay attention to your mind, and make sure you're doing good hygiene for it. And it starts by just checking up, right? You go to the dentist every 6 months to make sure your teeth are clean. You have a physical every year. Just take the moments, take some time to self-examine. Am I doing what I want to do? Am I serving what I need to serve? What's lacking? What do I need more of? We don't have that conversation often enough when it comes to us. We focus on the superficial, the hair, the nails, the teeth, but inside, who I am, what do I need? I want us to spend more time on that area.
Yeah, so it's dropping in. We had to drop in for a visit. It makes me think about when I had to deal with a significant amount of angst after I lost my best friend, and where I felt that the angst had me, right? That there was something that took control of me, and I'm wondering how am I going to function like this, because something felt like it had me than me being in control of my own life. And you know, I had to get into that space of compassion, really deep compassion. And because I was also grieving, right? There was grief in there, sadness, profound sadness in there, but real fear because the situation arose from a very sudden, unexpected, you know, thing that she's here, she's gone. Like there's unfinished business. Like I wasn't ready for her to go. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and
I know.
yeah, but what I didn't expect was this angst, um, and I wasn't sure if I was going to get out of it, like, because it uses a lot of energy, you know, a whole lot of energy, but it's also like there's a lot of tension in the body. So just because I'm pretty in tune to how I feel, and that amount of like tension, I thought, you know, to escape from this way of feeling, it's to this thing that you want to bust loose really says we have to go in. We have
Right.
to go in and be still, be still, and just notice and witness, what is it that I'm really afraid of? What is going on here? Like, what is it that's feels like it's got me? What is it? And you know, I'm happy to say I recovered from that, but it was a tough time for me, and I had a lot of responsibility in a way of working with an oncology program at that time to speak. So I was pretty raw and vulnerable, and man, it was just it wasn't even optional, because it didn't feel like I would be able to live out my life that way.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's challenging, very challenging.
It is, and it's usually something big like that, like a loss of a loved one, a loss of a relationship that does it. For me, I feel you, because I lost my uncle in 2016, and this man was my brother, my best friend, my dad, my diary, my Kleenex, my teddy bear. He was my everything. And there was only 8 years between us, but we had this fantastic relationship. And he died at 48, heart disease, sudden. Like, who dies at 48? You did not have permission to leave me. Like, the older ones could have died, but not you. And it happened so suddenly, like you said, like we have unfinished, but wait, hold on. No, and you're just there, right? Um, and it's hard. It's so hard, especially when that person was your rock and they're not there. And I remember being a student of science, I had to go and I had to research, why does my heart hurt whilst I'm crying? Because this is crazy. But there are actually some chemicals that make that whole thing happen. But what it did is it kicked me in the gut. It kicked me in the heart. It shook my seat. And you have to self-examine now, because the sounding board is gone, the cushion, the teddy bear, the Kleenex is gone, and that was a lot. And the good and bad thing for me at the time is that I was in some serious studies, so I had a good distraction to put my energy into, but it meant that I was then actively and totally dealing with the loss. And so I added more into my plate, which kept me distracted, but it kept me going. And I tried to deal with the grief. I figured I was doing okay. I'd still be very weepy. I think I still wept for him for probably about 2 to 3 years after his death. But I was losing it. I was Other areas of my life were suffering, not just because of the death, but because other things were going on, and because I was still trying to row the boat, raise the sail, um, point out the direction, feed the kids, run the business, all of these things. And this is what we do. We do it so well, but then something happens, and you're either going to crash and burn, or you'll crash, or you'll burn, but something gives. And I'm grateful that I had somebody that looked at me and said, "You're not doing well. You need to go and talk to somebody." And I did. And I talked to a counselor, wasn't a psychologist or psychiatrist, but somebody who was trained to listen and forced me to stop and put the mirror in front of my face and said, "You're not good." I'm like, "No, I'm okay." "No, no, no, you're not good." Because you get up and you do it every day and you're in the hamster wheel does not mean that you're okay and you're doing good. And and I remember saying to them, "I feel like I can't catch." That's a Bahamian saying that, I just feel like I can't manage, I can't catch. And he's like, "What do you expect?" Because there were so many other things going on. And I have to mention that I had other deaths in my family. So after my uncle died, I had 4 other deaths in the span of 2 years. That was monumental. So like it was like this. And I'm an oncology PT too, right? So I'm doing palliative care. I'm losing patients as well.
Oh my
And
goodness.
I have to show up, and I have to be sunshine for the patients and their families, and I have to make sure that I can function at work. And there was just so much. There was so much. But I'm grateful that somebody forced me to stop and look and examine. And then I realized, like, no, you got to get this together. This is not happening the way it's supposed to happen. You're going to lose yourself. And this is why self examination is so important. And it's important that we have this conversation, that you don't wait till you get into a crisis of a death of a loved one, a loss of a job, um, a dissolution of a relationship or marriage to start doing this. Do it now. So perhaps you're better able to manage, and you're better able to salvage things, because so many of us get caught off guard. So many of us are just doing what we usually do, and it takes a monumental event to slap us and just wake us up and say, "Whoa, we need to get this together. We need to find out who we truly are and why are we doing the things that we're doing." Because sometimes when you really sit down and write it down, it's not that important. Like, I don't need to be doing this. Why am I trying to juggle 6 balls when I only should be juggling two? You know? But this is where the self-examination comes in, and it's why it's so important.
Yeah, and I think when we're in a profession, we have a career, and we have responsibilities, and we are, we're proud of what we have accomplished, and feel that we
Mhm.
should be able to like do these things, right? There's an independent nature. Like I know personally, I'm a pretty independent person, and I was in the military and almost like a single parent when my husband was away for, you know, long deployments, and just trying to have stability, trying to create stability. That, and my job as a therapist is to help create stability, right? And help people navigate in their own life. So that sense of responsibility, and I should know this, and I'll be okay, you know, and you kind of, we put ourselves, you know, and what we're needing off to the side to just keep going. We keep going, and then we just keep going until all of a sudden we fall out, right? And we didn't see it coming. And those,
Right.
and the intention is good. So the intention to serve is wonderful, right? And so we're so invested. But everything is energy, right? Everything is energy. And if we're not realizing what's seeping out, right? What is seeping out? So we never really get to be replenished. We don't ever get to replenish and revitalize. So, and again, like in the healing arts and in profession, like you're in oncology, and for me too, I'm, you know, in oncology, and when people have had devastating, life-altering illnesses and accidents, that we have to show up with our heart, right? And the physicality of the job itself. There's a physical expenditure, there's an emotional expenditure, right? There's a mental, like, so we're expending energy all over the place. And self-examination is part of self-care, right? And it's more than getting the nails done, which is really nice to do. I mean, enjoy, treat yourself. But we're talking about mindful check-in, right? Pausing, like going to the bathroom. That's even self-care, right? People could be like spending all day with a full bladder. Like, go to the bathroom, or you don't wait, you haven't eaten. It's like all of a sudden it's like, man, I got a headache. I didn't eat for the last like 8 hours. What the heck? So, right, it just arrives. We're a mother, we're a wife, we're a business owner, you're, you know,
Daughters.
doing, yeah, like all these responsibilities, but the expectation that we have for ourselves is important, that we realize that we have to balance out work and rest.
We do. And you said something very important. You said that we show up and we serve, but we should be the first person that we serve. And we're very selfless. We are physios, you know, and people that work in healthcare. We take care of everybody else. We leave us for last. No, we need to change that. That paradigm needs to shift. You have to take care of yourself. I can't give you the best if I haven't eaten, I have low blood sugar. What is that? Right? I'm bound to make a mistake. I'm bound not to be at my best. I can't give you everything if I'm depleted. Somehow along the way, we've used the full bladder. Oh, I haven't eaten for 8 hours to show our dedication to the job.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
we suck to ourselves. Like, no, don't do that. Have breakfast. Take a break. If you have to go hide in the bathroom or walk outside, do that. Because you have to take care of yourself. You have to take care of yourselves. We have to train each other to take care of ourselves. Let's start looking at each other. And I spoke today about competition on the live. Don't look at the other person as competition. Don't try and compete. Oh, I had 10 patients today. Well, I had 11. How are you feeling? What's your blood pressure? like.
No, you're back. I lost you for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay. Lost you for a second. Yeah,
Yep.
it's, part of it is that we have a culture that has constructed this way because we have teachers doing the same thing. Kids are not allowed to go to the bathroom in school. Like, you have to wait. So all these we set up a culture that you are not able to fit in the things that allow us to be our best, allow us to take the best care of ourselves and work with the natural rhythm of the body. So our system is setting us up for breakdown, for illness, and we have to make changes individually to acknowledge that this is not okay. And because ultimately, what does this look like down the road? And where if it's a blood sugar problem, it's a infection, like a urinary tract problem, or malnutrition, or we have sleep disturbances. Like, we can name a lot of things: depression, anxiety, and just irritation, frustration. And then all of a sudden we're not fulfilled with what we're doing, or we just we lose that sense of enthusiasm. So we have to structure our own lives individually, where self-care is not something extra to do, but it's an integrative part of what is necessary for us to sustain our health and our well-being and an outlook that is going to be supportive and productive.
Right.
And this is society. Society's mentality of what success looks like, and how we, take that ladder.
Right.
We have to change it, but it has to change from the individual. And it's and again, not waiting till we end up in a crisis situation, because then and here's the other thing that just popped into my brain, because that's when it becomes acceptable to do those things. After you've had a problem, after you've had the crisis,
right
now we get the medical note. There's a justification. Now you're justified why you have to do this, right? You got to wait till you get sick, and then you have a legitimate excuse. When, hey, we had a legitimate excuse. Not even an excuse. It was legit, period, to the simple as going to the bathroom, drinking water. So people don't drink water because they can't go to the bathroom.
This is why we need to have the conversation. This is why you need to decide what is important to you. What does success look like for you? Because if you're really honest, half of the things that you're doing does not serve what you really want to do. And it's a humbling thing, because we've trained ourselves for the last 20, 30 years. I've been a PT 20 years this year. And I just realized I just wanted to do. I knew there were areas that I wanted to focus on, but I just did. And now I'm like, what do you really want to do? Like, what would make you happy? I remember I was at a CSM, Combined Sections meeting for the American Physical Therapy Association. We were in a meeting, and there was this lady, very statuesque, beautiful woman. And somebody whispered, she lost her mind and she walked away from everything at the peak of her career. And I was like, she lost her mind. The woman looks quite stable to me, right? So anyway, I'm that kid. I go over and I said, "Hi, how are you?" I said, "I heard that you walked away from your post and everything." She said, "Yeah, because I was losing myself. I was losing myself and I was losing my family. And that was more important. So nothing else mattered." And I walked away. And I was like, wow, this woman was at the top of her game, like the top of her game. And if you see her, and you can just feel somebody's energy. She's just so positive. She, like I said, she's statuesque, she's poised, everything. Like when you stand in her presence, you feel through true authenticity. You feel that you're standing with somebody that's happy and that's arrived. And the people call her crazy because she walked away from what everybody else is fighting for. But I'm so glad I met her when I did. And I wish I had kept her more in the forefront for the last 4 to 5 years, because then I probably would have been a little more gentle on myself. And I'm okay now. I'm okay now. The things that probably pushed me and drive me are not. And because I know her and I see how she's thriving after walking away and doing something crazy, as everybody referred, the woman is happy. She is just zen. I want that. That will make me happy. That would totally make me happy. And I'm okay with that. It's still a lot of self talk because I'm recalibrating. Yes, I have a young family and I still have to take care of them. But the fact of the matter is that we put too much pressure on ourselves, sometimes for the wrong things and not for the right reasons. And you have to serve yourself first.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope, if anything anybody takes away from my 30-day challenge, is that they start to look at their lives and do that self-examination and focus on them, what they want, what they need, what they're lacking, and work on them to be more authentic so they can have a more fulfilling life.
Yeah, and it's so important that truth be told to ourselves, right? Because if we're doing something for someone else, and in our heart we're not really happy, because we don't need to wait till something happens. I've been there too. I've been,
Right.
and I again, these things tend to like all of a sudden creep up because the intention is there to do good, and then all of a sudden it's like when we're in the fist of doing good and moving and pressure and working under these demands, and then all of a sudden we are no longer able to bring the same effort to the table, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we wonder, like, I don't know what I want anymore. And
Right.
basically, because part of it is we need rest. We need to just stop. Sometimes you
Right.
just need to stop and collect yourself, the reflection you were talking about, and to identify what is in your heart, because we can feel like we're going to disappoint someone, or we might feel like, gosh, I spent all this money, all this time, and that's not what I want to do, and then
Mm-hmm.
but I got to do it, so there's a lot of these conversations, this self-talk that we're having, but at the end of it all, though, we really need to get to that point where we seek truth for what is, the thing, what
Yeah.
is the thing, and be open to listening, right, without the judgment, with an open heart, with the kindness, with the gentleness, right, and allow information to come to us, because it can, and it's subtle, when it comes in, and then you might be like, huh, and literally like, and it happens just like that, like a whisper. And but staying open, because we can find answers and information around us where something provokes a thought, right? another
Definitely.
perspective, another option, another opportunity. And it's always available. You know, it is always available. This is a vast, expansive, spacious world. And,
Yeah.
um, so,
Yeah.
you know,
And what I love what you said is that you have to examine what is the thing, what is the thing? And the thing is, the thing can change, but at least you're doing the work, at least you're examining. As parents and maybe as children growing up, our parents had an idea of what we were supposed to be. I'm supposed to be a medical doctor, by the way. I totally missed the mark from my dad. I remember when I was going for my doctorate in PT, I'm like, well, I'm going to do the doctor thing. So if you want to pay for it, and he's like, no, 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 it's not the same thing. But it's just to say how our parents project what they want on us, and we carry that. And sometimes we project what we think we want on ourselves because society says you should have a white collar job, you should make six figures, you need to work in corporate. But is that what we really wanted? Is that truly, truly what we really want? Is that truly what's going to make us happy? It may not be. And so what if I spend 20 years as a physio? If I want to go and work as a marine biologist now, there's nothing stopping me, right? Am I I've served well physio, but can I work someplace else and still be fulfilled or even more fulfilled? Yes, and it's okay. And who cares what anybody else says once you're happy? That's what we need to focus on. Don't worry about what other people may say. They live in their own life. They might be doing their own struggles. Don't watch them. Focus on you. What's going to make you happy? What is what is going to authentically feed your spirit and feed your soul? That's what you need to focus on. And the judgment is serious. We need to get away from it. We really need to get away from it. You know, we shouldn't.
and you said something that's so important, especially when it comes to what um, our parents may want for us, because, and I say this to anyone who's actually dealing with this now, that and struggling with this, because giving ourselves permission to be and do what's in our heart, what's truly in our heart, without feeling like we're going to dishonor a relationship, we're going to be disowned. Because I have several situations, but two in particular come to mind. One where a physician's child, well, college medical student, took his life, right? So, and all kinds of questions come to that. Was this young man on track to doing what was in his heart to do? And that he could not speak and voice that this is not the path for me. This is not what I want. And another situation was two doctors with three children, and the doctors wanted their children to be doctors, and two children became doctors. One says, no, that's not for me. So this one took the path of, I was very successful, right? It wasn't
Mm-hmm.
medicine. I think it was more in a business line. And however, the strain on the relationship, because the parents actually put space, they, right? And so this is heartbreaking, because that son, because he did not do as his parents basically were mandating that he did.
Mm-hmm.
If not, there was a threat, right, to their relationship. This is a real problem and a real issue in our society, and we have to be deliberate and intentional and loving to break this, because at the core of who we are, we can't make people be what they're not, because that invites pain and suffering, and and this way of living is not acceptable. This man became so depressed, right? So he's so successful, like successful with financially and like all the things that measurably show success,
Right.
internally dying inside. And because his parents, they didn't consider him, his worth was tied into the job, the title, the role, the status. And this is a society that we are grooming our children, right, for a successful path because we want for their well-being. But at times we, this has to be clear, because a lot of it is nonverbal sometimes. It can be subtle, it can be manipulative, it can be parents vicariously living through their children, all these kinds of things that show up in this path. But that piece about self-examination is something that we have to choose to do.
Right.
It's not passive. It's not a passive process. It's not an easy process. But it's necessary, and giving ourselves permission. Giving ourselves permission to be who we are, at least to explore who we are. Because, I'm approaching 6 decades and I'm like, okay, here I am. Like, I'm evolving. I'm growing into myself. And that means I'm open to learning about myself and accepting myself, and all the intricacies of my lived experiences, and having my children and my marriage and all the stuff I've done. Who am I at the core, at the end of the day, at the end of my life?
Right.
That's it. Is there peace in my heart? Is there peace and like I can breathe because I am good with who I am. You know what I mean? So wow, that
I
was
know what you
a
mean.
roundabout thing, but yeah.
No, I know what you mean, and it's like I said earlier, some people find it so difficult to sit down and have this conversation, because they've been telling themselves a particular story for all their lives, and they feel that to change the story, they're not being true to themselves, or they've had so many people convinced that this is what it is. To do something different would draw too much attention, or to prove themselves liars for other people. But who cares about other people if you're not happy? Like, seriously, like, I don't care. I truly don't care. You do good, people judge you. You do bad, people judge you. So do whatever you want that makes you happy. And if they judge you, who cares? Because you're happy. Be bold enough to have that conversation, to sit in front of yourself and put the mirror. After 20 years, is this where you want to be? Is this what you want to do? And for me, it's funny, you and I, we only have daughters. Um, we're role models for these children. This is another generation that we've let loose. What do we want our daughters to emulate? How do we want our daughters to go through life? Do we want them to be stuck in a career for 20 years? And not that I'm stuck in physio, because I love what I do. But do we want them to be somewhere for a certain amount of time without having that conversation? Am I truly happy here? Like, what am I doing? Do I need to reevaluate? Do I need to recalibrate? What I do see is that this younger generation, they're not like us. Mm-mm. They will switch on a dime. And I love that. But at the same time, we have to recognize that we're modeling and we're patterning for them. And I want to make sure that my daughters know that their mom has paid good attention to what she's decided to do with her life, that she is very intentional with the decisions that she makes, that I'm not doing it just because. And I have no problem sitting with them and telling them, like, these are the mistakes that I made. I'm not perfect. And I tell My 14-year-old, I tell her that all the time. I'm like, Mommy is not perfect. She messed up and she'll probably mess up again. So I'm going to need you to give me some grace, but I'll talk you through it. And it's a humbling experience when you have to explain to a 14-year-old that you messed up. But I see in her eyes, she's so, she feels so involved. And she thinks she's giving me advice, and she is. But she really feels now that, she has something to contribute, and she is. But I feel like I'm empowering her at a much early age to be very, very observant and very, very involved in making real life decisions. At 14, I want that. I have a 10-year-old after her, and I love that. And I want women and men, but especially women, because we're raising that next generation to be able to do that. Because the facade that we put up, people see through that. They see through it. And if we want to raise genuine, authentic children, we need to be genuine and authentic to ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, this is such a beautiful conversation about the things that matter and loving and caring for ourselves, having a tough conversation with ourselves, an honest conversation with ourselves it's necessary, because if at some point in time, as we live our life, we're going to be at a point in time where we'll question ourselves, right? So right now, where we're not in crisis, let's do this now.
Yeah.
Let's do this now and pay attention. Because we can, and to recognize that we can, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciate, that what you're doing, and just who you are being, it's with your sunshiny yellow. Beautiful. And I'd like for folks to connect with you if they would like, if you want to share your information.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So, again, Dr. Kitty Adderley. Well, my first name is Kitiboni, Kitiboni. There are very few of us on Facebook. I think I'm the only girl so far. So you'd find me very easily. Or if you type in physiotherapist, physical therapist, I should pop up as Kitty. Um, the business name is Handling Your Health, Wellness, and Rehab. We also have a group called Handling Your Health at Home. And where else can you find me? I'm on Twitter. The business is HYH Wellness, Instagram, HYH Wellness, and Caribbean Physio. So very easy to find. And I look forward to hearing and, speaking more with you. I want to continue the conversation, and I want to create a safe space for people to explore this even more. I'm also a health coach. We didn't put that in there. I know I'm an overachiever, I guess, but I felt I needed to do that because there were so many patients that I was seeing with non-communicable diseases and not really sick, just not managing their health properly. And I needed to understand how to do that even more. And what I want to do is to definitely create the space where people can come in and we can have these conversations on a continuous basis. So we'll do coaching calls, and we'll definitely do group sessions. And Deborah, I think it's fantastic what you're doing, and I'd love to keep talking to you and working with you and bringing people into the fold, because we're not having this conversation enough, and there are not enough safe spaces for people to explore what they're truly feeling without feeling that they're going against the grain and they won't be supported. And it's very important for us to do that. This 30-day live has taught me so much, because I'm doing more counseling in my inbox than in my clinic right now. And I'm fine with it, because it means that I'm meeting the mark. I succeeded at what I didn't even think I was going to be able to do, or even thought would be something I'd do. but definitely please feel free to reach out to me. I love talking, and we will be continuing the lives for a little bit longer yet. And I'm always open to suggestions and ideas and topics that you'd love to explore, because as I teach, I learn, and as I share, I gain. So I'm just honored to have the platform, to have the space, and to have the audience to share.
Yeah, and you know, community is so important, and because it is tough to just try to do this alone, um,
Hmm.
and feeling that you have a safe space, that you can trust the environment, you can, you know, build a rapport and connect and feel good about opening up, right? And that's a huge part of what we're wanting to create. And you know, this is, I love this conversation. This is something that it feeds me personally, and it's part of, as healthcare providers, that we recognize as we go out and serve our patients, that when we are serving and feeding ourselves and aligning and collaborating with people who are doing the same, that it has a ripple effect, and it's intangible. Like, we feel this presence, and this presence is love. This presence is a field that is very accepting and open and caring, and we don't even have to say a word for people to feel that. So I thank you for being here, my dear, and having this conversation with me, and look forward to more conversations. And those of you listening, that if you'd like to connect with me, you can find me on Facebook, Dr. Deb Howell. I also have a podcast, Dose of Deborah, Rehab for the Heart, and my Instagram is Dose of Deborah. So thank you so much for tuning in, and take care of yourself. Give yourself permission, right? You're worth it. Time is now, all right? Now. And blessings to all of you. So.
Good night. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.